Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the IZZOWN by D'Antonio podcast. My name is Mike, and I did not upload a video from last week's disaster against Michigan. If you want to see my reaction to that one, go over to the Big Ten podcast. Um, there, I show my completely unfiltered reaction to Michigan State's loss to Michigan. But today is Selection Sunday. So, what I'm decided to do is do my own bracketology today. And that is exactly what I'm going to do. Show you the one seeds. I'll show you the last teams in, the last teams out, the last teams have a bye. But this is not what I think will happen. This is what I think should happen. So we'll get into it in just a second. But first, we got to go over what I used. I did not use the quadrant system. I did strength of record was one of my main things. I think strength of record is a pretty good stat. Kind of shows you what you've done against the record you faced. I think it's a good stat. I'm not using RPI or BPI in this. Who did you beat? Strength of record and some common sense. All right, I'm not going to leave a team out that has looked good all year. Even though they haven't really beaten that many teams. But you got to still beat some teams, of course. I'm not saying that you can get out there and just play Alabama A&M every game, go undefeated, and lose in your conference tournament and get in. No, that's not how it works. You have to beat some teams. So that is my criteria. And the first thing we're going to is, and also to note, with San Diego State and Davidson winning their two conference tournaments, two teams will be left out of the field that would have made it if Rhode Island and Nevada won their conference tournament. So, say Nevada won, no other Midwestern Conference team would have gotten in, but because Nevada lost, Nevada's still going to get in with an at-large vote. But now San Diego State just stole one from another team. Same with Davidson. We already knew St. Bonaventure was getting in no matter what. Rhode Island was getting in no matter what, but Davidson had to win out, and they did, which means the A10 is going to get three teams, I believe, in the tournament. And this is what my bracketology would look like. But again, two teams that would have got in here are not going to because of Davidson and San Diego State stealing votes, stealing bids from them, which is unfortunate, but it happens. That's what happens when you make the conference tournament an automatic into the tournament. All right, let's start with the one seeds. The first overall one seed is the Virginia Cavaliers. No surprise about this. They've been the most consistent team in the nation. No road losses. And they really just took care of business in the conference tournament. Villanova, similar, took care of business in the conference tournament. Have a couple okay losses, but they have some really good wins. The first two are definite locks, and I think the third and fourth one are probably locks too. Kansas, because they've just beaten almost everybody, it seems like. Seems like all the good teams on the schedule have played Kansas and lost to them. And yes, Kansas did lose to Oklahoma State twice, but they avenged their win in the conference tournament. They also beat Oklahoma. I don't know why I said that. Oklahoma's not very good. They beat West Virginia. I believe they beat West Virginia twice, Texas Tech once. So Kansas, I think, even though they have a decent amount of losses, I think they'll still be a one seed. Xavier, there's a caveat with Xavier. I don't think Xavier is that great of a team. There's just not really another team that should be the one seed. North Carolina would have been my final one seed if they didn't lose to Wofford. If they had beaten Wofford, I would have had North Carolina in as the fourth one seed. But Wofford pulled it out, and North Carolina did not beat Virginia in the ACC championship, which means they are catapulted down to the 2 spot. But these are my one seeds in my makeup bracketology. Let's move on to the 2 seeds. North Carolina, like I said, Duke, Michigan State, and Purdue. These are my 2 seeds. No surprise really here. North Carolina, just the sheer amount of quality wins they have. Very good strength of schedule and very good strength of record as well. One of the best in the country. Duke has some really good victories over Michigan State and other teams. Duke's really dangerous. We've seen this year they did lose to North Carolina. I don't think that brings them down that much because the ACC is so tough. Michigan State, this is more of a common sense one, but Michigan State does have some good victories, including against North Carolina. And they are the only top 25 team that has not lost to a current top 25 team. So they did lose to Ohio State and Michigan when they were unranked, but both of those teams are ranked now. So Michigan State has only lost to teams that are ranked right now in the AP poll. So consistency, like we saw with Xavier. I don't think Xavier's beaten too many good teams. I know they've beaten Cincinnati. And Cincinnati's a good team, but they lost to Villanova twice, lost to Providence twice. But just their sheer consistency of Xavier. So I got Michigan State as a 2 seed. The committee probably won't put them there. Purdue has some good wins on the season, 2 against Michigan. So Purdue rounds up my 2 seeds. Let's go to the 3 seeds. And then after the 3 seeds, I'll just go to my last 4 in, and then I'll go to the other seeds. So 3 seeds. I got Michigan as my first 3 seed. Gonzaga, which probably won't be a 3 seed in the real tournament. Cincinnati, and Tennessee. We'll start with Michigan. Pretty common sense pick here. Michigan really been playing well lately. And I know I didn't say that in the criteria, but, playing well later in the season is going to boost you. Michigan's winning streak helps. Gonzaga's winning streak also helps. They've also beaten St. Mary's on the road, beaten Ohio State. They've got some good wins. Do the Zags. Cincinnati. I'm not a big fan of Cincinnati, but they did beat Wichita. And as of right now, they're playing Houston. It's a really close game. If they were to lose that game, I don't think they're going to go down any more. I think they're going to stay the same. Tennessee, I like Tennessee a lot. They have some good wins on the season, including over Purdue earlier in the season. I like Tennessee. They did lose to Kentucky, but that doesn't bring them down too much. I know it brought down a couple spots, but they're still a 3 seed. So those are my 3 seeds. Let's move on to the last 4 byes. So these are the last 4 teams that are not going to be playing in the preliminary rounds. They'll be playing in the first round. The UCLA Bruins, the Baylor Bears, Florida State, and St. Bonaventure. These are the 4 teams that will not be playing in the preliminary rounds. So they will get a bye into the first round. So, pretty self-explanatory. The Bonnies have been extremely consistent this season. Florida State, middle of the pack in the ACC. I see them as a 10 seed. I'll get to that in a second. Baylor. I know Baylor. A lot of people don't have Baylor in there. Baylor's resume is not the greatest. But when you play in that conference and you have some good wins like Baylor does, I think it's hard to keep a Big 12 team out. And that's what I will be doing with another team. But Baylor right now is in. UCLA has some good wins on the season, including Arizona and also Kentucky. UCLA is one of the last 4 byes in the tournament. So let's move on to the next 4 out. Then I'll go to the first 4 out, and I'll show you why it's going to be a very interesting selection Sunday. So Oklahoma, that's right. I do not have Oklahoma in the tournament. I've just watched Oklahoma too much this year. They've been on I swear they're on national TV every day, every game they play, and they've been extremely, extremely disappointing. So them, also have Arizona State in the next 4 out category. You can't go 9-9 in the Pac-12, lose in the first round, and make the tournament. It doesn't. I don't care who you are. I don't care who you've played before that. So I don't have Arizona State in the tournament or Syracuse. Syracuse, probably the most mediocre team you've ever seen. Definitely a signature Jim Boeheim team. Just as mediocre as you can get. I also don't have Marquette in. Marquette's had a good season. 9-9 in the Big East. I don't think it's going to be enough to get the Golden Eagles in. They lost to Villanova in the first round, or did they lose to Xavier? One of the two in the first round of the Big East tournament. They pretty much ended their shot at making tournament in my bracket. Let's go to the first four out. First four out. Texas. That's right. The Texas Longhorns are not in my tournament either. The Louisville Cardinals are not in my tournament either. Again, this is all Louisville's fault. They're at 4 with 1 second to go, and they couldn't close it out. One of the worst losses I've ever seen. Maybe I'm biased a little bit because I just couldn't believe that they lost that game, but they did. So I do not have Louisville make the tournament. Or Middle Tennessee. I was flirting with Middle Tennessee, and they were in until Davidson took down Rhode Island. Therefore, they're not in. St. Mary's, another team that was just so close for me. Couldn't quite make it. Just barely missed. It was them and another team. I'll show you what the other team is in just a second. That was battling it out for the last spot, and I just gave it to the other team because I like the potential more. And I've seen St. Mary's this season a lot. St. Mary's started the season well. They still have a really good record, but they did lose to San Francisco in conference, which is not good. Jock Landale, one of my favorite players out there. When they double him, St. Mary's struggles to score the basketball. And other guys haven't stepped up as well as you'd hope for from St. Mary's. So, I know I'm St. Mary's in the tournament. These are my last four in: Notre Dame, Alabama, Oklahoma State, UCLA. Notre Dame is the last team in my field of 68. And they'll be playing UCLA in the first round. UCLA is in the last four and in the last four byes because, like I said, Davidson won the A-10 championship, which puts Davidson in the tournament, but as an 11 seed. So they will be playing in the preliminary rounds. Oklahoma State will play Alabama. Oklahoma State will be playing Davidson, and Alabama will be playing Notre Dame. Notre Dame's the last team in the field for me. I took them because I like the potential over St. Mary's. Alabama with some nice wins over Auburn and Texas A&M to get there. Oklahoma State, I know their conference wasn't very good. I just like their team a lot. I've seen them defeat Kansas twice. Texas Tech, they have some good wins. Do Oklahoma State. And UCLA is the last team in. They also get a bye, like I said. The Bruins are in for me. So, let's move on to the 4 through 7 seeds. As you can see, West Virginia, Ohio State, Tech, and Kentucky are my 4 seeds. Kentucky, despite winning, just couldn't quite get there because I still remember that losing streak in the middle of the season where they looked terrible. Texas Tech's been pretty consistent. Ohio State's lumbered off a little bit, but they're still pretty good. West Virginia got to the Big 12 tournament championship, so they're staying where they are. Auburn, I'm not impressed at all, really, but just a 13-5 record in the SEC is good enough for a 5 seed for me. Arizona's a 5 seed. Wichita, Houston. Now, if Houston defeats Cincinnati, they'll probably stay on the 5 line. They'll just move up, is what I think will happen. But I don't see that happening right now. I believe Cincinnati had the lead when I last saw it. But again, we'll see. We'll see what happens. 6 seeds: Clemson, Miami, TCU, Florida. Not really surprising here. Clemson, not been too impressed with Clemson this season, but they are impressive enough to get the 6th. Same with Miami, 3 seed in the ACC tournament. It's pretty good. TCU, nobody likes TCU. TCU seems to choke all the time, but they still have a resume of a 6 seed. Florida's a definite 6 seed. Arkansas, Butler, Virginia Tech, and Providence. Providence had a nice tournament. That brought them up from a 9 seed to a 7 seed for me. Just on that alone. Just the fact they showed they could play with Villanova. Butler jumped up a bit too. Arkansas stays, and so does Virginia Tech at the 7 line. 8 through 11 seeds, and this will show you what I mean. Rhode Island is an 8 seed for me. That's right, I have Providence ahead of Rhode Island because Rhode Island lost to Davidson. Seton Hall, Texas A&M, Kansas State. A lot of people have Kansas State lower, but I like Kansas State. They play really good defense. I like Kansas State. Texas A&M, pretty self-explanatory there. Seton Hall and Rhode Island, of course. 9 seeds. I have Creighton, NC State, Nevada. 10 seeds. USC, Missouri, St. Bonaventure, Florida State. And the 11 seeds got Baylor, UCLA, Alabama, Oklahoma State, Notre Dame. Davidson's the final team, but they are automatically in my thing. So that is what I have in 12 through 16. You could read these on your own. You could pause it and read them. This is what I have for the rest of the field. Okay. Conference breakdown. So the WCC has 2 at the bottom. They actually only have 1 because I took St. Mary's out last second. A10 gets a surprising 3 teams. American gets 3. Pac-12 a disappointing 3 teams. Same with the Big 10, a disappointing 4 teams. Big East 6. Big 12 7. SEC 8. And ACC I got with 9 teams in the tournament. So that is going to be it for the IZZOWNE'S by D'Antonio podcast. And ladies and gentlemen, don't miss the Big 4 podcast. We will be doing one after Selection Sunday. Our reactions to the bracket. Maybe if Syracuse gets in, I'll get to get a big argument going with the guys, but don't miss it. It's one of the bigger ones of the year. We get to talk about the teams. So thank you everybody for watching, and I will see you on the next podcast. Thank you.